50-47 entering the second half, probably where I think we all maybe imagined entering the season they would be. It stings real bad knowing how glorious June was to then one of the worst 2-week stretches from a Rays bullpen we've ever seen in the history of the franchise. And I know
you are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Rays, your daily podcast covering everything Tampa Bay Rays, from game analysis to player interviews. We've got you covered with all the latest news and insights. My name is Captain Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano,
bringing you expert analysis and passionate discussions about our beloved Rays.
We're here to break down every play, every trade, and every milestone. In fact, this is our 7th season covering the Rays daily.
So grab your favorite Rays gear and settle in as we have Evan Closky on the program. He is alive. He has returned. He is here in the flesh. It has to be, I'm just ballparking it here, maybe 6 weeks since you were last on the show?
Yeah, I don't
8
know.
Weeks?
I mean,
I don't know.
I guess, we had an internal issue within the clubhouse where all three of us couldn't get on the same potato. And all of a sudden, then Kevin started yelling about parking, and
yes,
and then Ulises took another international trip, and then here we are.
There we go. Exactly. And we have a lot to talk about, especially what has been going on in this 2025 season. But before we get to that, we got to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, well, let's get down to brass tacks. We're going to put a 3-minute timer in our heads because we want to listen to you give us a monologue of what has been the 50-47 2025 Tampa Bay Rays from your perspective. What have you seen? What have you liked? What haven't you liked? Let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, the first half has kind of been the Edwin Uceta experience, right? There have been flashes of brilliance. There have been some really, really terrible moments. Overall, I think 50-47 entering the second half of the season is probably where I think we all maybe imagined entering the season they would be around this time. I think it stings real bad knowing how glorious June was to then have all that tremendous goodwill negated by one of the worst 2-week stretches from a Rays bullpen we've ever seen in the history of the franchise. And I know some out there have been like, well, you ever seen the Devil Rays play? And my answer was always, the Devil Rays just sucked, okay? Yeah. Like starting pitching, hitting, like there wasn't ever a stretch where it was like, oh man, if only the Devil Rays had like a bullpen, they would have been better. It wasn't like, oh man, the Devil Rays lost a bunch of games because of their bullpen. You know, that really became they all slumped together. And during June, I guess you can say they all were hot together as well. But that is that I think is the most upsetting part about this, is that typically year in and year out, the Rays bullpen figures itself out. And we don't have to worry about that. They find people off the scrap heap. They make it work. And more than any other year, for some reason, with the bullpen being probably the worst we've seen it in quite some time, it's actually been the least flexible bunch we've ever seen. You know, typically it's plug and play, throw this guy in, throw that guy in, acquire this person, pick this guy who's a DFA. Haven't really seen a lot of movement. We've seen a lot of the Uceta, Kelly sticking with kind of the same horses. So really upset about the bullpen, really eating some of the words that I said entering the season about how I thought the bullpen was a lot better than what people thought. Was wrong. But the hitting is a lot better than what we thought as well. And that's, I think, a huge positive moving into the second half. They have, I think, the best average against right-handed pitching, which everybody wonders why this team continually drafts lefties. Why shortstop, lefties, prep, we all know that stuff. But why do they fall in love with lefties? Righties start more often. This is a philosophical thing. And when you look at the average and see how well they're doing against righties, seems to be paying off a little bit. Jonathan Aranda, I don't know, a top 5 MVP candidate this year, certainly has helped kind of the probabilities move in Tampa Bay's favor a little bit. Brandon Lau, when he looked the best that we've seen in really quite some time. He was healthy, but it's always kind of a matter of when now he gets hurt. Hopefully he'll come back soon. Junior Caminero looking like a budding star. Chandler Simpson, Jake Mangum looking like spark plugs. So those are all great things. And then the starting rotation, the fact that this unit as a group made every start. Only Joe Boyle once is the only person who didn't wasn't a part of that 5 to begin the season, because Shane McClanahan went down right before opening day. But that is also unheard of, which also stings, because the starting pitching for the most part has been nails. And especially during that losing streak, I think the starting pitching had one of its best streaks of the year. And that gets overshadowed by the fact that the bullpen couldn't ever win those close games. So overall, when we wrap this up, when we look at it in the big picture, I still think this is a good team. I still think that they are a team that would scare others in the playoffs. But certainly I'm not buying this bullpen. I don't think they're this bad, but they need to figure out, when we get into the offseason, there's going to be a whole conversation about how they overhaul that group. And for once, the Rays are going to have to show investment into a bullpen, something they have rarely done in their past.
2 things. We got to put the bullpen on Facebook Marketplace. Just get rid of it. Take whatever you have to take for it. And I don't know if we focused on this enough, and I know it's a little cheeky, but 50-47, 3 games over 500, 4th in the division, and the Rays still get 4 All-Stars. That is something to be happy about, I suppose.
It really sucks how we entered the All-Star break, and it really soured kind of this beautiful taste we had in our mouth entering July 1 with this team. But I would say, optimistically, looking forward, I have a tough time believing that they're going to go through as rough of a stretch as what we just saw. Now, maybe they won't emerge as a great team, right? Maybe they'll just hang around 500. Maybe they'll go on one more mini slide here to get back to being a 500 team, which was kind of their preseason prediction of 81, 82 wins by Vegas standards. But I think the regression has already hit from the June surge. You had the July swoon, and now I think better days are ahead. The bullpen will be a little bit better. I am worried that the starting pitching is not going to hold up as well as it has, whether that could be injuries, whether that could be regression. These guys are all hitting innings that they've never hit before in their careers. We don't know what they're going to look like in September. If the team's not in it, you're probably going to shut down some of these guys as well. I hope that's not the case. I know the Rays won't shut down guys if they are in the playoff race.
Right.
I can say that confidently. But, that's I just don't want people to fall victim of the moment of what the last 2 weeks were, considering we were all victims in a moment for a 4-week stretch where they were the best team in baseball. So you got to weigh both, and you got to evaluate both of them and probably say that they weren't as good as they were in June, and they're not as bad as they've been in July, and find out a happy medium there. But overall, I think I still look at the first half of the season fairly positively. Just a lot of kind of what ifs. It really, they should be 3 wins better than what they are now, and we'll see what happens. But there are a lot of questions we have to have with this team if they're serious of making a surge, and they continually, it doesn't look like Manuel Rodriguez is going to be back anytime soon, if at all, this season. Hunter Biggie, who knows? He had the shoulder issue. Then he got, rocked in the face with a baseball. Those were two pivotal bullpen arms, which are gone. Two guys who can get strikeouts. Two guys who actually had, pitch velocity on their fastball, which is something they were seeking, and they don't have that. And Uceda's kind of finesse. Kelly's kind of finesse. Clev's got some heat to him. Montgomery was supposed to be a spitballer, and I still believe in him, but he couldn't. He had no control, and they had to send him down. Engler has looked nice recently, but nothing, special there. Orzi, split finger guy. Like, it's just they need scarier options on the back end. And if you look at any good team, Yankees have been doing it for years. Look at the Astros. Boston's kind of doing it right now. You need a 7th, 8th, 9th guy, and you need like dudes. And I like Pete Fairbanks, and he's actually like kind of transformed himself this year from a strikeout pitcher to make contact ground ball type of guy, unless he's facing Ceddanny Rafaela. But he with his profile, he's looking more like an 8th inning guy. Like, if you're not going to strike people out, you tend to look more like an 8th inning guy to me. Even though he's been extremely effective in the spot. So, I don't know. We can talk through like every player for a long time if we wanted to, but it's just there are a lot of. I think it's a big what if. Coming off July, it's a what if.
And we have much more to discuss on those what ifs. But first, we got to tell you something very important on the Locked On Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? I know Kevin and I have. You want to see your Rays, and you can do that by using Game Time, because you can save so much money on the tickets, and that extra money you save, you can splurge it on food, drinks, merch, whatever you want. You should know Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, and that makes it super easy to browse the app for an exciting upcoming MLB game. For example, the Athletics are coming. Why not see a game or two? Because the Rays will be playing a lot of away games. So don't wait today. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
All right, gentlemen. Should we go ahead and get into Closky on the clock, Ulises?
I think we should, Kev.
All right.
It's time for Closky. Closky on the clock.
Jazz hands. Yes. Ulises, you want to kick it off with the first question for Mr. Evan?
Yes, I do. Evan, if you had to pick an under-the-radar player that not a lot of people are talking about within Rays Nation in 2025 performance only, who would that player be and why?
And someone who's like with the team right now?
Yes.
Someone who's not being talked about enough. I'll go with Ryan Pepio. I think everyone knows that he's good, but I don't think people realize how steady he's been, his stuff plus all the things that he provides to the rotation. Like, he looks like a very clear number 2 in this starting rotation for a long time. If you had a playoff series, he would undoubtedly be one of your top 3 starters. I just love everything about Pep. He had a couple of bad games there in the first half, but for the most part, he grinds you out 5, 6, 7 innings. And, I can mention a ton of people who I just think are being talked about a lot, like Chandler and Jake, and some of these guys are a little bit more flashy. But I think Ryan has been steady and probably flying a little bit under the radar for how good he's looked for most of this season.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. I think I know the answer, but might as well ask it and give kudos anyway. First half of the season or going into the All-Star break, first 90 plus games or so. Who has been the team MVP in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, the team MVP to me has to be Jonathan Aranda. He just has been, I mean, for me personally, going back to, last year, 2 years ago, of always slamming the table for this guy, looking at his numbers in the minor leagues, knowing how much he's demolishing that pitching, and then for him to come up and never really find success, that always never made sense to me. And for him to come up really this year for the first time, having a job, playing full time, proving to Cash that, hey, I also got to play against lefties, most lefties, as long as there's not multiple in a week. He's, I think, a top 5 MVP guy right now, probably like 5, but I think he's in that discussion. And he's just hitting the tar off the ball. I mean, baseball savant page, whatever you look at, through the roof outside of his sprint speed. He looks like wow, this dude is a star. I had high hopes for Jonathan, but I never thought that. And it can all come crashing down in the second half. But my goodness, what a player this guy is.
Yeah, he has been really more than I think a lot of people thought he would be. And you said earlier, MVP votes. I think maybe a lot of Rays fans would be scoffing at that, but really, you look at his page and you look at the comparison, and it's pretty wild what he's been doing this year. Let's go with a little bit on the negative side of things. Underperformance due to injury. Who are you kind of let down, but it's because of injury, and maybe it's something that keeps happening, maybe it's just an injury that just happened, but what is the underperformance so far due to injury?
I mean, I guess I would have to go with McClanahan, right? It's nothing really with performance. It's just he hasn't pitched. Entering the season, Kevin Cash mentioned how important he is to this rotation because he settles everybody in. And I think the starting pitching, this entire rotation really deserves a big tip of the cap for finding their way. But, he's coming off of TJ and then, internal brace, whatever it was. And then he gets hurt again with a nerve issue. We don't expect to really see him till end of July, August. So you got to remember, this is like a bona fide ace, like one of the best pitchers in the game at his peak. And I think people forget how important this guy is to the rotation, how good he is when he's humming. So not performance based. It's just if you're talking about someone who was injured, who was supposed to have a great season for this team and really swing wins in your favor, Shane's that guy. And you just hope that they're in a race here for Shane to make an impact down the stretch. And hopefully the Rays get to roll him out game 1 of the playoffs, and we get Shane O'Mac back in our lives.
I honestly, Kev, I thought Evan was going to give us a different answer. I thought he was going to go Ha-Seong Kim because, when the whole signing happened, it was early May, and then it was
highest paid player on the team.
Late May, and it was early June. June.
My thing is we knew entering the season, though, he came off of a shoulder surgery. It wasn't like McClanahan, who literally his last spring training start got hurt. We knew Kim at best was going to come back around, after Memorial Day. And the fact is they took their sweet time. And I think they took their sweet time because the team was doing really damn well without him, and they didn't want to buck everything. So they had the luxury of saying, let's hit the pause button. I also think that they want him to be the shortstop. And I think, it took a little bit longer for his arm strength to come back. And that's important at that position. And they had the luxury of playing the long game with him when they did, because they were winning. So, that one, not as surprising. Like DeLuca, the first week looked great with Johnny, but, I would say it's tough for him. Like if there was somebody who needed to prove himself this year, it was Johnny DeLuca, and we still don't really know that. Richie Palacios is another one, a guy who barely, I think, played one game this year and is,
I think he went 3 for 3, didn't he?
It was a great game, yeah.
It was a great game. Two guys that like you could have been like, oh, these guys are gonna get full at bats in 2025, and then injuries happen, and then something that didn't happen, that we didn't think could happen, happened quite quickly, which was, hey, there are other dudes that can do your job, and they're doing it pretty damn well. So It was unexpected for sure.
Josh Lowe got hurt at the start of the year with the same injury he pretty much had last year. Came out like gangbusters and looked like, like holy crap, this is the 2023 guy. He's back, and then fairly recently he's looked like the 2024 guy. So he's hit into some bad luck. But like Josh getting back into the swing of things, like we got to figure out down the stretch of which guy are you the guy from May, or are you the guy
right
in June and July? Like we still this guy, he's also throwing us through like these ups and downs and these waves. So again, those are just injury stuff.
Last one for me, and I think of the program before we move on to Friday's episode with Evan Closky. Ulises and Evan, Ulises and I talked about this earlier this week. In the All-Star game, there was quite the scenario, extra inning swing-off, which brought some entertainment and panache. With all the changes that baseball is making between universal DH and ghost runners and soon to be ABS, I'm sure. Will the swing off ever be introduced in regular season games in future seasons?
No, I hope not. I really don't. It was cool because it was something we hadn't seen before. But I think if you keep doing it every day in a 162 game season, I think you're going to realize how not fun it is and how lopsided it is. And what the Yankees get to run out. It puts an exorbitant amount of an inordinate amount of importance on sluggers. And all of a sudden, like Kyle Schwarber is going to be worth like double the amount of money. Aaron Judge, Pete Alonso, all these guys who can smack balls out of the yard based on 3 swings. Like that's not baseball. Like for the All-Star game, it's perfect. Loved it. Keep it. Great idea. But no, it's not. I don't think that's good for the sport. I think it's gimmicky. The man for man stuff is already like borderline gimmicky, but at least it's still baseball. You're just expediting the process. If you wanted to go back to a world where you gave me 13 clean innings and in the 14th you wanted to do a swing off, I might come around to that.
That's what we said. Like, give one more.
If you want to do the 10th a clean inning, the 11th a man on first, the 12th a man on second, and then in the 13th you do a swing off, fine, I'll do that. But no,
that's more revolutionary. That we were thinking, just give after the 9th inning, give each team 9 more outs. You get one more turn of your lineup with regular baseball, quote unquote, with the Manfred runner. And then if you can't do anything after 9 outs, let's kill it with a swing off.
Yeah. And look, I understand like a burning bullpen arms and all that stuff, but
come on. We're sitting on MVP candidate because it's a tough lefty, even though he's hitting 330 against them. Like, can we like just let athletes be athletic?
I can't support that. I can't support that for regular season stuff. So
too much Savannah banana in the MLB.
Yeah.
It's just it's gotta be baseball. And I don't care if you put a runner on second, but it's gotta be baseball.
Pitchers on the fields coming next. dancing hitters in the batter's box. There we go. Evan, how can people find your amazing, wonderful, stupendous work?
Well, you can see at Closky WTSP. You can hit me on the X, send me your questions. A lot of you already do. And as you know, I will respond to 99% of you. There's 1% out there that just don't get my time. But otherwise, I love interacting. I love answering questions. I love giving my opinion. And, that's part of the fun of a 162-game season. Also, make sure you head to 10tampabay.com, 10 Tampa Bay Plus. You can watch the Ultimate Florida Sports Show on 10 Tampa Bay Plus. I know we have a few topics Rays-related on this week's episode. I do it with our friends up there in Jacksonville. So make sure you download our app wherever you watch your streaming content. And yeah, you can also watch our sportscast at 6 and 11, even if you don't live in the area. So you got that going for you as well.
There we go. And thank you for making Locked On Rays your first listen today. For your second listen, be sure to check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Local analysis brought to you on a national scale. You can find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on the YouTubes or wherever you listen to those podcasts.